Hey gang, how are we doing? So just wanted to just set up a bit of a live stream to just go through a question that we commonly get asked, which is around why do we recruit our VAs from Nigeria of all places? And it's been quite a interesting innovation that we brought out to really kind of handle this conundrum that you have when you're using offshore virtual assistant talent. So such as places like Philippines and India, which when I grew my marketing agency, we had done lots and lots of outsourcing and lots of talent from those different locations. And it came really about because if we send three things that you need to get done to VA in the Philippines, what happens is two or three, two of those things might come back perfectly when they do it overnight. And when you see it the next day, you're like, great, but there's this one thing that you still haven't quite got right. So could you make these changes? And then again, they'll do it overnight. And 2 days later, you might get your three small things done. When you're working with someone that's in that time zone, it can be frustrating because it could just be a small thing. You're desperate to get it out. And so we had to solve that problem. And so we looked around at places that would be great. And of course, time zone, which would be convenient. Now, the beautiful thing about Nigeria is it's on exactly the same time zone as the UK in the summer, because with the British summer time, it's exactly the same time zone. So it's 9 o'clock when it's 9 o'clock. So you can have your morning meeting with your team and it's 9 o'clock for everyone. And then in the winter, when you have that daylight saving, it just goes back 1 hour. So it's only 1 hour out. So it doesn't really changes. Everybody works on the same time zone. So that's a huge benefit. So number one, it's all around that time zone because you can make a phone call and a WhatsApp call and have a conversation with someone. You get your three things done within half an hour, not 2 days. And that's a hugely beneficial side of working with people in the same time zone. The second reason why we really like Nigeria is the language proficiency. So Nigeria is one of these places that has so many different languages. It's one of the most highly densely populated language countries in the world. There's loads of different languages. So the national language and the language that everyone is educated in is English, which then makes everybody fluent, completely capable, and both literate and in terms of talking, perfectly like any other UK speaking or English speaking country. So that also then mirrors up perfectly with UK and UK and whatever English speaking countries that want to use Nigerian VAs. The other thing, obviously, is cost effectiveness. Okay, so clearly the cost of employing people at Nigeria is less than employing people in the UK and in Europe. So you get those economies of saving because of that. That's the whole point why you use places like Philippines, etc. But because it's less, probably less competitive and less widely used than, say, the Philippines or India, the cost savings are actually even better as well. So that's another consideration when you're thinking about Nigeria. The cultural diversity we see as being a plus because you can bring a fresh perspective into your marketing, your world, your approach to things. And we see this as a plus. Sometimes we can all be in our own echo chamber and actually bringing people who can give their opinion and their thoughts on what they've seen coming from a completely different point of view. We see that as a massive plus point as well. So that's really one of the great things about it. It has a fantastic access to talent. So there's huge amounts of tech infrastructure going on in Nigeria, lots of training. They have a culture of education. There's lots of great universities over there. There's lots of technical qualifications, proficiencies. And so there is a really good variety and diversity of talent out in Nigeria as well. Legal familiarity is as well. Because they're obviously, Commonwealth country, ex-British Empire country, there's a few things that have been kind of left there as legacy, one of which is the legal system. So they have a very similar legal system to British legal system. And so there's that familiarity for you and obviously that understanding, in terms of things like intellectual property, which is super important, which is slightly blurred if you're using places like China or etc. So that's a super important point for a lot of us. Then there's also this kind of global perspective and you thinking a little bit more globally as a business. And that just helps you to not just think great Nigeria when you think about VAs, but actually where else is there potentially great opportunities for you to be able to base your team. So great example for us is that, yes, we're using talent in Nigeria, but we're also looking at potentially people doing closing and sales meetings for us and accessing talent in South Africa and other parts of Africa as well, because then it starts to change your classic mindset of offshoring and outsourcing to India and the Philippines to actually where else in the world could work well. So that's great. And then there's the flexibility and scalability. So it's one of the, I think it's like the 5th most highly populated country in the world. So the scalability, if you're thinking about Nigeria, is vast, and therefore that scalability in terms of building your team. So I hope you can see that there's some really interesting points, and really the point of this video is to help you to think a little bit differently when you're approaching your kind of virtual assistant or help and support. And if you are interested in talking about getting your own virtual assistant based out in Nigeria, our business actually recruits, we train, we've got a training academy based in Lagos, and we can help to place virtual assistants from Nigeria into your organization if that is of interest. Great. I hope that helps. Some interesting ideas there. So I guess the 9 things, just to recap: language proficiency, time zone advantage, cost effectiveness, cultural diversity, access to talent, technical proficiency, legal familiarization, global perspective, and the flexibility and scalability. Cool. I hope that helps. Big love. Take care.